Rare. While to you millennials, they're just a standard gaming factory that pumps out mediocre games. But back in the day, they were gods, pumping out some really iconic games, such as Conker's Bad Fur Day, GoldenEye 007, Battletoads, Donkey Kong Country, and especially today's subject, Banjo-Kazooie. Speaking of Banjo-Kazooie, let's talk a bit about their history. Back in 1995, after the release of the critically acclaimed Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest, Rare decided to create a new IP called Dream. Taking inspiration from the Zelda series and LucasArts games, it was going to be about an adventurer named Edison who along with his dog Dinger, gets tangled up with some pirates led by Captain Black Eye. The game would have been an isometric RPG using the same pre-rendered graphics used in the Donkey Kong Country series. It was said to be Rare's magnum opus for the SNES. However, the team at Rare felt that the game was just too ambitious and different from what they usually do. So they decided to turn the game from an SNES RPG to an N64 platformer a la Donkey Kong Country. They also turned Edison from a human boy, removing the dog, into a rabbit, and then finally, a bear. Kazooie didn't exist at this point. It was just Banjo on his own with only his backpack. The team wanted Banjo to have a double jump, but since it looked a bit weird, they gave his backpack some wings during double jumps. Later on, they gave him some legs. Later on, becoming Kazooie herself. The game changed yet again after the revolutionary Super Mario 64. So the team decided to turn the game from a 2.5D game into a 3D platformer. But before we get into the series, let's get into Banjo's first appearance in game. And that would be, before Banjo's big break, he was a playable character alongside Conker in 1997 racing game Diddy Kong Racing. And then finally, in 1998, Banjo-Kazooie was released on the N64. The game starred both Banjo-Kazooie as a going adventure to rescue Banjo's little sister Tootie from the clutches of the evil witch Gruntilda, who plots to steal Tootie's beauty from her. The game was very similar to Super Mario 64, as it was a 3D platform where the player collects things in order to progress. But with far more refined gameplay, the game makes use of Banjo-Kazooie's moveset as they fly, shoot eggs, swim, and collect all sorts of things, like notes to open doors, Jinjos, and especially Jiggies. You can also turn to animals thanks to Shaman Mumbo Jumbo using Mumbo tokens. Upon release, the game was released to critical acclaim, with critics praising its detailed graphics, unique gameplay, and amazing score by the legendary Grant Kirkhope, selling 2 million copies and winning numerous Game of the Year awards. Due to the success of the first game, a sequel was already in production, released in 2000 called Banjo-Tooie. The game was set 2 years after the events of the first, where Grunty's sisters bring her back from the dead from a giant boulder from the first game, now as a corpse. Grunty seeks revenge on the group and casts a magic spell on Banjo's house, which ends up killing poor Bottles, who was the mole that taught you all the moves in the first game. Now Banjo and Kazooie are out for revenge. The game includes way more things than the first game, like larger levels, more moves, new characters, better graphics, and even multiplayer. The game will also have far more darker tone than the first game, with a lot of death in it, and even a zombie Gruntilda. Like the first game, it was well received, though it did get some criticism for its frame rate. Now we can't talk about Banjo-Kazooie without mentioning Stop and Swap. What was that Stop and Swap is a feature from Banjo-Kazooie that was supported to be a means of unlocking special content in Banjo-Tooie. That was shown in an ending sequence in Banjo-Kazooie. Evidence suggested that it was never fully implemented due to the N64's revisions completed in 1999 that kept the feature from being practical. The feature was lightly publicated through column published by Nintendo Power. Rare announced the special areas and items in the game could only be used by completing certain tasks in the sequel, Banjo-Tooie. It was later discovered that Banjo-Kazooie contains 7 special items which can be accessed using lengthy in-game cheat codes or by using the cheat cartridge once collected. These designs would be viewable in a menu called Swap, Stop, and Swap, even if the game is reset. All of the items will remain permanently. Sadly, due to the N64 software being too short, it was eventually scrapped. Now, with the N64 ending its life cycle and the upcoming release of the GameCube, fans expected the third game to be released on that platform. Sadly, it was not the case, as in 2002, Rareware was bought by Microsoft, now called Xbox Game Studios, losing the rights to Donkey Kong, and any GameCube game that Rare was making was either cancelled or moved to the Xbox, like Rabbi the Ghoulies, Cameo Elements of Power, etc., leaving Star Fox Adventures as their only GameCube game they made. However, that did not mean that they were not allowed to make any games on Nintendo consoles anymore. For in 2003, Banjo and Kazooie got their first handheld adventure called Grunty's Revenge. Published by THQ, best known for the Nick and Pixar games, it was a prequel to Banjo-Tooie, which sees Grunty going back in time to stop Banjo-Kazooie from meeting each other in her Mecha Grunty suit, leaving Banjo to go back in time to stop Grunty and save the day. The game is basically a handheld version of the games in an isometric view, but also put in some minigames. The game has a pretty interesting development. It was originally a GBC Game Boy Color game called Grunty's Curse, set in a parallel universe a la Pokemon I Choose You 2017. The game would have been about Grunty cursing Banjo's friends into hideous monsters, leaving Banjo to find a cure for his friends and save the day. It was meant to be a side-scrolling platform and more power-ups. It was eventually turned into a GBA game when the Game Boy Advance was announced in 2001. The game was mostly well received, calling it a faithful GBA recreation. The game was also released on the mobile in 2005. 2 years later, and Banjo-Kazooie got another GBA spin-off called Banjo Pilot in 2005. Originally a Diddy Kong pilot game, it was eventually given the Banjo makeover when You Know Who and You Know What Happened. It's basically Mario Kart, but what makes it stand out is that instead of a cart, it's a plane. The game got mixed reviews upon release, calling it inferior to Mario Kart. Now, going back to 2000, at the end of Tooie, when Grunty teaches players to Banjo 3E, like I said before, fans would have expected the first game to be released on the GameCube with a tech demo in 2000. However, Microsoft screwed things up, and so Rare had to start over from scratch. So instead of making a sequel, they decided to make a remake a la Conquer Live Reloaded. The game was called Banjo X, and it would have been released for the Xbox with improved graphics and gameplay tweaks. But it was eventually scrapped, so they decided for an all-new idea, which sees Grunty trying to outdo Banjo-Kazooie at everything, but it was also scrapped. So the guys at Rare decided to try out an all-new idea, kart racing, with Banjo-Kazooie. It was a prototype that allowed players to create their own vehicles using different materials. Sadly, like the others' ideas, it was scrapped. But however, the idea was not entirely scrapped, as the idea would have been turned into something else for the franchise. And y'all know what this is. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts was released for the Xbox 360 in 2008, set around 8 years after Banjo-Tooie. Banjo-Kazooie and Grunty faced together in challenges led by Log, aka Lord of Games. The game was very different from the other Banjo games, as it was a construction vehicle style game where players create vehicles to complete challenges. It still features some platform elements in it, but not like in the other games. It also featured many characters from 1 and 2, as well as new characters. While it was well received upon release for its unique gameplay and gorgeous graphics and music by Grant Kirkhope, it was slammed by fans for ditching everything that made the games amazing in the first place, though in recent times it has gained a cult following, thanks to its unique gameplay. Sadly, like with Locke said, you'll probably never get another game, and that's pretty much what happened. And at the time, all Banjo-Kazooie ever appeared was in Xbox Live Arcade for both 1 and 2 in 2008 and 2009, and even appeared here in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing in 2010 and the Xbox 360 port, but after that, nothing else. That is until 5 years later when Banjo-Kazooie makers left Rare in order to make their own studio, which became Playtonic Games, which had Kickstarter for a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie called Yooka-Laylee. But before that, there was Rare Replay in 2015, which was a collection of to many of Rare's games, minus DK and GoldenEye. In 2017, Playtonics released Yooka-Laylee, the Banjo-Kazooie spiritual successor, which sees the Baton Chameleon trying to get back the pages from the corrupt capital B. It was basically Banjo-Kazooie and a next-gen game, with some added features like updating levels and eating berries for power-ups. The game received mixed reviews upon release, with some praising its faithfulness to Banjo-Kazooie, but some calling it dated. The game did receive a spin-off called Yooka-Laylee: The Impossible Lair in 2019, which was a 2D platform and got better reviews than before. However, also in that same year as The Impossible Lair, Banjo-Kazooie finally returned, not in a new game, but as playable characters in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, as well as Spiral Mountain as a level, making Banjo-Kazooie fans very happy. Also going back to 2007, there was going to be a Banjo-Kazooie cartoon on 4Kids that would have been similar to Viva Piranha, but was scrapped. So who knows what the future holds in store for Banjo-Kazooie with their platformer pals like Crash, Spyro, KO, and even SpongeBob getting remakes and even new games. Who knows if Banjo-Kazooie would fall into this? Who knows? But for now, it's nice to see the Bear and Burrow see more popularity. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you all next time. Woohoo!